Bonjour tout le monde! One of my favorite France versus USA list posts on my blog is one from a couple of years back titled 77 Little Things That Are Different About Life in France as Compared with the US. And I did a quick video here on 23 of them, but since you seem to like all of that, I'm back today with a few more things that fall into that same category of random little things about life in France that are different from how things are done in the US. So let's jump right in with number one. The census doesn't collect data on ethnicity or religion in France. Now, in the US, it's normal when you receive your census to tick off a box for ethnicity, religion, and other personal data. In France, it's definitely not. Now, France has about 35,000 municipalities, and while all of them partake in the census, none of them collects data on residents' racial makeup, religious practices, and things like that, and it's actually forbidden by law to do so. All right, number two, school dances and sports teams aren't a thing in France. French schools, they don't have prom, they don't have a marching band, sports teams, or special graduation ceremony. I mean, maybe there's one out there that does something like that, but typically this is the case. And if kids excel in a sport or they want to pursue an extracurricular activity beyond general physical education class, that's something that they organize with their families, with their friends, on their own. It's not something that the school offers. Now, there are also no school-hosted dances in France like you'd find at American schools, you know, like I said, prom, homecoming, and that sort of thing. So these American rites of passage, they're just not part of French culture, and there's really no French equivalent at school. Now, I've personally found that schools in France have less of that community feel and more emphasis is put on academics. So there's no Friday night football or a football team in general where the community comes together in that way. And I always think it's interesting to hear what French teens think of popular American TV shows that depict these aspects of American culture that don't exist in France. Shows like Friday Night Lights, which I loved. It revolves around a Texas high school's football team. That type of show, it wouldn't exist in France because, like I said, high schools don't have sports teams. So no JV, no varsity, no jackets, no wrestling, nothing like that. It's just different. Okay, number three. Friday the 13th is a lucky day. So in France, it's a positive thing, and there's often, I think almost every time, there's a special lottery jackpot for the occasion. Now in the US, that's not the same. Friday the 13th, and in Western superstition, it's a very unlucky day, and all of that is said to have biblical origins. Now the next one is coming up in January 2023, so like I said, if you're superstitious, don't step on any cracks, don't go look for any black cats. But if you're in France, definitely play the lottery because luck might be on your side that day. All right, number four, peanut M&Ms are the standard M&Ms in France. So here, when people talk about the M&M candies, they're referring generally to the peanut ones in the yellow packages. If you go to McDonald's, for example, and you ask for an M&M McFlurry, the M&Ms that are mixed in, they're the peanut ones. So French grocery stores, they do carry the regular chocolate ones that are brown and brown packaging, and French people know what they are, but when you say M&Ms, the default is the yellow package, the peanut variety. And speaking of food, I'd love to introduce you to my panier. Panier is the French word for basket, like a shopping basket, and they're an online specialty and gourmet food market managed by a French owner that has thousands of amazing French foods as well as a selection from around the world. They have warehouses in both France and the US, so you'll get what you order wherever you live, quickly, might I add. And my panier's mission is to make authentic and hard to find foods available nationwide. So whether you're a French person living in the US and you want to find your favorite things that remind you of home, or you're just a foreigner like me and you're looking for your French food fix in the US, be sure to check out my panier via my link below, and I have a promo code for you, so check them out. All right, number five, the TV license tax. Now, if you have a TV in France, you have to pay a fee of 138 euros. Well, that was at least the case until this year. This sort of fee now has kind of been phased out, and it's common in a lot of countries, but not the US. So when I first came to France, I saw a guy kind of looking around outside. He was like looking in people's windows, a little too curious from the street, in search of that dead giveaway, you know, that blue glow from a TV being on inside. So if you saw the glow, you saw the TV, you were billed 138 euros. But if you were a student or you're below a certain income level, you might have been exempt. But generally speaking, most people paid this tax, and it went to funding services provided by Radio France and France Télévisions. These days, as I said, it's been phased phased out. I think that TV tax, it's lumped into the local taxes. It doesn't exist anymore as a separate item. But the first time we got the bill, when I first came to France, I was super confused because, as I said, that doesn't exist in the US. All right, number 6. Pets are not registered with the town's health department. Now, when we first got Dagny, who I told you sadly passed away earlier this year, I asked Tom where we needed to submit her proof of vaccination from the vet and officially register with our town. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? He had no clue. And as it turns out, you know, he wasn't just clueless. It's because in France, you're not required to register your pet with your town's health department, pay a fee, provide proof of a rabies vaccine, and get like a little tag with a number. Doesn't work that way. So I don't want to give France any ideas since taxes are already steep, but you don't register a pet here with the town like you do in a lot of places in the US. Okay, number 7, coffee comes after dessert. So when you're out to eat in France, if you order dessert and coffee, the coffee generally comes after you've finished your dessert. Now, if you want to drink your coffee with your dessert, which I feel is pretty common in the US, you'll need to specifically ask for it to be brought at the same time. Otherwise, like I said, it's literally coming after you've finished your pie or your cake or whatever. And no worries, you know, it's not a faux pas if you ask for your coffee to be brought at the same time. It's just a more uncommon request since the French generally wait to drink their coffee, a little espresso, until after they've finished dessert. So if you ask, you might not actually get it with your dessert because they're used to bringing it after, but it's totally cool to ask. And like I said, in the US, dessert and coffee usually come together if you order both. Okay, number 8. Crustless bread. Now, as a kid, I'd always save my crusts on my sandwiches until the end, but not for the trash. They were my favorite part of the sandwich. The whole save the best thing for last, and that's what I did. And I know a lot of kids, and maybe adults too, in both the US and France, they don't really care for the outer edge, that crust of their sandwich bread, and France has a solution for that. Let me introduce you to Crustless bread, the brand Harry's. They're one of the most popular ones, the brands that sells this sort of bread, and it's made without any crusts at all. So this is actually called pain de mie, that's regular sandwich bread, you know, with crust, and this would just be sans croûte, without crust. And it doesn't have any crust at all. It's a perfect little square. It's in the grocery store right next to the regular sandwich bread. These crustless breads, they're mainstream. They're easy to find everywhere. And like I said, Harry's, they came out with it in 2004. They call it 100% mie, 100% mie, and it's a perfect choice for kids or anyone else who doesn't want to deal with those pesky crusts, right? I can't say I've seen crustless bread as mainstream in American supermarkets. You'll have to let me know if it's become a thing. I personally don't buy that. I love the crust, but it's there. All right, number 9, maternity leave is a minimum of 16 weeks long in France. So soon-to-be mothers, they're entitled to 16 weeks off of work with pay, which breaks down to 6 weeks before birth and another 10 after. Now, it's longer if you have twins, if there are complications, or if it's your 3rd child. And there's also paternity leave breakdown, which I believe is 4 days of mandatory leave right after the birth and then 21 additional days within the next 6 months. And adoptive parents also get leave. I believe it's a little bit shorter. But remember, this amount of paid leave in France is what's given by law. It's not a perk of working for a great company and having great benefits. It's what's allotted by law. Now, in the US, it might surprise you to know, or maybe not, that companies are under no legal obligation to offer any paid parental leave, or any leave at all, although good companies do, and they package it as a benefit to attract good employees. There is the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA. It covers up to 12 weeks, I believe, of unpaid leave, but it's only an option for those of you who work at a company with at least 50 employees. So yeah, that's a pretty big difference about how maternity leave is handled in the US versus France. Now, as I always say in these sorts of videos, nothing I've talked about here is a judgment about France or the US's way of doing things. I'm pointing out how things are. They're different countries, and it's only normal that things are done differently. And of course, there's reasons for that, but it's still fun to learn about these things and discuss them, and you can decide what you like better personally. Finally, if you're traveling to France and you want to be more prepared, I do have an e-guide titled 75 Beginner France Travel Tips for a Standout Trip. I'd love it if you check that out. I'll leave it here for today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you back here on We in France soon. Salut!